All right, hello everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. This is a fun one today, data transformation using AWS DataBrew. Let's just get right in. All right, so AWS DataBrew, it is a data preparation tool through Amazon Web Services that data engineers, analysts, whoever, actually anyone with an AWS account can join and do data transformations in ETL. Primarily, DataBrew would be the T in the ETL for the transformation. Let's see. Let's go to the next one. Okay. So for the lightning talk today, we're going to start with S3, which is the Amazon Simple Storage Service. We'll go over that in a second. And essentially, we'll take a file and drop it in S3, open it in DataBrew, do some transformations and some stuff with it, and hopefully output the file in the format that we want, and then just kind of talk about some other things that it does. Typically, after DataBrew, after you drop the file and it pulls out, then it would be ready for ingestion or loading via AWS Glue, or you actually put it in S3 and it would be part of your data warehouse for Redshift or Snowflake or anything like that. All right. Oh yeah, so, all right, so for today, the lightning talk, we're going to use the some sample data I have from the Chicago Board of Option Exchange. It's just daily or it's transaction data, individual transaction data from the S&P 500 index. I think the data is from January of last year, and so if you did any kind of trade on the SPX, somewhere in that file, your trade is actually in there somewhere. All right, so real quick, let's jump over and take a look at the CSV. It's data. Let's move you out of the way. And we're going to come in, and it's a lot of data. A lot. Okay. All right. So now, is next? Is it demo? It is demo time. Okay. Let's go here. Okay. So I've already logged in because I have tons of multi-factor authentication and stuff to get through to get into AWS. So I just kind of took care of that, so we don't have to sit here and kind of muddle through all that to get in. So this is basically Amazon S3. It's the file repository. It's probably the most used Amazon Web Service there is. And that's where we will be storing our files and dumping things today. I would like to point out, so I've actually set up a bucket already. Think of a bucket as a parent folder or the top parent folder. And then underneath that, you can have subfolders and everything all along. But fun thing is actually, if you refer to the programming and everything and some of the functions, these are actually just referred to as keys. But one thing I did want to point out back on the home screen, this bucket was actually created in the US East Ohio region. So if you ever play with this or you're working with AWS alone, just make sure that you're working in the same region for whatever web service that you're working in. All right, so let's jump over here. And here's our input. So this is the preloaded data from the SPX. This is the January file, and it looks like I have February in here as well. Okay. All right, now let's jump over to DataBrew. Move you out of the way. Okay, so this is the DataBrew startup page, whatever. Real quick, you can check up here in the upper right-hand corner. We can see that we're in the right zone. We're in Ohio. That's important. We'll need to be there so we can get to our data. And the other thing on this screen I really wanted to point out is the cost. It's not bad. The first 40 interactive sessions are free for first-time DataBrew users. I think I'm actually still a first-time DataBrew user for my login. And then past that, even that, it's still pretty cheap. Every session, I think, is $1 for every 30 minutes. And then when you execute a DataBrew job, which takes your data and spits it out in the format that you want, it's 48 cents per node hour. But there's a little bit more math behind that, because you're probably having 5 to 10 nodes, and it would be per minute per node, and a long story short, I've done this, and I've used it on and off the last year or so, and I think I've been billed the most, like $3 or something a month. Anyway, all right. So let's start. The first thing you do with DataBrew is it starts with a data set. So you would come to the first selection here, data set, and I've already created one because I like to make sure that these things work before I show them. And we'll just take a quick look at the setup for this guy. Actually, let's jump back and we will edit this. Let's move you down here. All right. So this is the edit screen. It's only different from creating a new one by just because the thing's already named. You would normally you would name it, and then you would actually map it to S3 right here. And if we wanted, we could actually change the mapping if we wanted to have our source data from somewhere else. But in this case, the input is still fine. I would point out one thing about this. Notice that we are actually only mapping to the folder. And we can jump over here and see that, because we kind of want to sample all of the data. The assumption is that the data setup files that would have a similar schema, or they would be similar. So we would want to possibly sample all the files in the directory. Unfortunately for this, there's too much data in these files, so it's probably only going to sample the first one, but that's fine because I know these files are the same format. Supported formats for ingestion: CSV, JSON, Parquet, and Excel. CSV is probably used the most, at least that's what I've used the most, so that's what we're using today. Other settings, we will treat the first row as a header. That's pretty typical. We can see, we jump back to the CSV. You can see that we've got the column headers in the first row, which is very typical. One other thing to point out too, we're using S3 as our data source. You could also connect directly to Amazon Redshift or use a JDBC connection if you liked. There's some other things too. The Glue data catalog, this probably kind of builds on what Amit was talking about last week. We could use Glue as well, and use that as the data source as well. All right, let's move on to the project. This is a project I created. Real quick, we'll jump in. We'll just edit it, take a quick look. It's just basically a name. We already have the, yeah, this is the permissions. That's no big deal there. Yeah, there's not much there. Let me see. Yeah, so when creating a new project, this is where you would actually map to the data set you just created. Name the project. Here you have the option to attach a recipe. And a recipe is a set of instructions. That's the set of instructions that you're applying to your data set as it comes in. The recipe gets applied, and then hopefully you have the format after it's all over at the end. And the recipe is something separate. We'll get back to that in a second, though. All right, let's close this and let's open this guy. Let's cancel that. Actually, I've got the grid open over here. So when you open a project, this is what it looks like. And this is our data from our file. And I've been playing with it a little bit already. Back to the grid. Okay. And you can see it's actually imported all of the data, or actually, excuse me, it's sampled the first 500 rows. And then this is where it will allow you to do whatever it is you need to do. For example, I think in this one so far, I changed the data type on the quote date time to a date, and it looks like ultimately I converted it to a string. And something I thought we might do to start is let's suppose, all right, let's show, so we know this is a pretty big file. There's a ton of data in it. But let's suppose for our files, we want a different date. Even though you cannot see it here, you can easily come to the filter. You want to add to the recipe. And let's do 2020-01. Let's look for maybe the 15th. Get rid of that and apply it. So this unfortunately makes all of our data go away, but if we know that's what we want, we will publish the recipe because we know this is what we want. And then we're going to run a job. Now, I think I've actually already created a job and executed it again because I like things to work, or at least know that they work before I show it. So let's jump back over to the project and run this guy. Make sure I don't have any data out here real quick. Okay, we do not. And hopefully, when we run this thing, are we running? Okay, it's running. So this takes a little bit. So while that's running, let's jump back over here and let's remove this step. We'll look ahead. I don't think we want to do that. Something I did want to kind of go through that's kind of neat is just how it really, it brings in your data and you instantly see some statistics about the data that you've sampled that's coming in, distinct values, unique values. And of course, this is only for the data that's sampled, in this case, 500 rows. So I think that's kind of cool if you like data. Let's suppose we want to trim this down a little bit. Let's jump over to the schema tab and let's just remove a few of these columns we don't care about. Like, let's get rid of, let's do this. Why are you not letting me select? Okay. Trade IV. There we go. And let's delete that if we can. Okay. So we've got this over here. And let's get a few more. Let's get rid of the trade delta. Uh-oh. All right. We'll just do 2 since it's acting kind of strange. All right. All right, let's go back to the grid. And we can check our job progress up here. We can see it's still running. So we'll just kind of keep looking at a few things. And hopefully our trade IV and the best ask is not in our result set anymore. Okay. Well, I'm surprised that our job hasn't finished yet. Okay, that must be bad because it looks like it finished. Okay, back to S3. We'll hit refresh. And we've got 2 files here. It does that based on the nodes. It kind of splits the files depending on the partitioning for the data. If it's a very large data set, it will partition this thing into multiple files. But let's grab this, download it, and hopefully, what was our day? We wanted what, the 15th? I guess we deleted. I'm pretty sure it was the 15th. And quote date, yes, the 15th. Now, so that's one thing that's kind of nice. Yeah. So the other thing that's kind of neat, so we've deleted that, we've removed the files. So let's suppose, how do I wonder, did it actually, I wonder if I change, let's filter. lost my train of thought for 1 second. Let me jump back to the data set. Because I think it went through both files. Let's find out. I think that's right. So the nice thing about DataBrew is as long as the data incoming is the same and all the column orders are the same, we should be able to take a file and apply a recipe to it. So let me try this. Right quick, let me go to the job. Okay, so that should work. Okay. So let's jump here. Let's go input. We've got 2 files. We have the January file, the February file. Let's see if we can actually get a date out of the February file. So, recipe. Okay. All right, and run the job. So the nice thing about this is as long as the data coming in is the same structure, you can take the recipe and reapply it and get the same format out without having to do any more code development or even any more editing to the file. And to actually just look at a recipe, it just records the steps. You know, I like to describe this as just think of it as taking, it's almost like Excel, and creating an Excel macro and just applying it to data at scale. So we'll do this last little test, and then we can move on. So one thing I'll point out, if you notice that the actual job runs are a little bit slow, one of the things this does, it provisions compute and everything at runtime and execution. So it actually usually takes a little bit longer for the compute and everything and to be provisioned than it does to actually parse the file and run the crawl. So our data is a little bit small for the tool we're using, but that's the reason that we're all kind of sitting here waiting. All right. Not yet.
So while we are waiting, I can just give some more context to the people. For everyone who attended Amit's talk last week, so here this work we are doing at Admina Health, the problem that we're trying to solve is basically a lot of billing invoices and enrollment data, different files coming in different formats, and then we're trying to format those files in a standard format and then save that data to a database. So Amit did the initial solution that he shared yesterday with AWS Lambda, and then that involves coding in choice of the language of your choice, right? So he shared that last time, and then what David is doing is going one step higher and then trying to automate that so that we don't need the developer involved, where we can write these recipes. So the customer support team at Admina Health, they can take care of that. So that's the high level idea. and it's going to be a game changer for that company. They're going to save a ton of time due to this.
Yeah, and just to add, the nice thing about DataBrew, I really like it, because the data transformation part, not having to create code, it's very quick, and the feedback is instant. As you build the grid and you're working with all this data in the data frames, you can actually see the data exactly how you need it to be, and it just makes development a lot faster. All right, so finally, sorry for the delay, but we finally got our file, and here's our Valentine's Day trade data. And it just basically, we created a recipe based on the first file, and then it went out and found data in the file that would have been imported in February. So bam. All right. Now we'll jump back over to here. All right. So in conclusion, AWS DataBrew, it's a new visual data preparation tool that makes it easy for data analysts and data scientists to clean and normalize data to prepare it for analytics and machine learning.